If you're at home and you're listening in, we know that the day is long and there's a lot of juggling to be done. If you're emptying the dishwasher, that's totally fine. If you are able to continue to communicate with us in the chat, we'd very much appreciate it, because you are as much a participant as the people in the room here, and we immensely need your participation for us to move the conversation forward. If you have insights and questions, please add them to the chat. Helen is on chat duty, and she is really, really very, very good at it, except when she goes off on one with chocolate. So I'm going to ask you to redirect her back, please, as she starts with chocolate. I love you. So I'm joined now by two extremely accomplished people who are bringing volunteer tutoring at scale to the students who need it the most. And really, this is the antidote to that question that we discussed earlier about the old vision of tutoring, where it's for the most privileged and for the least successful and for a group of people that nobody around here is particularly excited about helping in their... We are really aiming towards an inclusive, embracing, positive approach to tutoring. And Jen from Action Tutoring and Yuliya from Svitlo do this all day. So there's going to be a little bit of why and a lot of how in this conversation, because I could celebrate you all day, but really what we need to do is find out how you're making it work and what the specific texture of that is. So who the volunteers are and what they need to be most successful, how you ensure their success, and all of that. I promise, only going to ask you the questions that you already know the answers to. But what's important is that everybody else in the room is dead curious about how it's done. So I'm going to first ask you to introduce yourself, and at the same time, please give us a little bit of your tutor story so that we can put you in context.
Great. I'm Jen. I'm the Deputy Chief Exec of Action Tutoring. I joined the charity in 2015, so I've seen it grow from quite a small national charity to a much bigger one in the last few years. I'm a former teacher, so I know the classroom side of things, but always wanted to have a bigger impact. And my role now, overseeing program delivery and impact and quality, enables me to do that through the work of Action Tutoring. And in terms of scale, this year we'll have about 1,700 volunteer tutors, all doing lower volumes than in particular private tutors, but from a really diverse range of backgrounds. And maybe I'll pause there, so maybe further questions.
That was a good tweet.
We'll go into that.
I love that very much. Thank you. Yuliya, go ahead, please.
Hi, I have a lot more to say about how it started. Yes, hi everybody. I'm Yuliya Kosko. I'm Ukrainian born. Have been in the UK since 2007, as I said earlier, and I started my career in the primary school as English as additional language coordinator, then got my teacher's degree, then I worked in state primary school for a while, and then I started an education consultancy, and that got me into private tutoring because lots of my clients needed help for the school placements that we were offering. And this is all important because being Ukrainian, when the war started, my parents were there, and from Zaporizhia, which is like, you know, the nuclear atom, the nuclear power plant. It's like 80 kilometers, I think, from our house. So, of course, it touched me personally, and I was trying to help, like everyone else. And I got in touch with my teacher that used to teach me, and the power of teaching, that used to teach me, and I wanted to see how I can help. And she got me introduced to her class of children, that was second week of the war, where Ukraine was all over the news in the world, and those children had no education. They were running into bunkers like every 40 minutes, 30 minutes, because there were sirens all the time. Their parents were always panicking, of course, and they also didn't have that exposure to international media, thinking that the whole world is supporting them. They felt completely abandoned. So I started by talking to them myself and telling them about my story, and then I posted a few kind of call-outs on LinkedIn, and Facebook. And within 2 weeks, we had 40 volunteers and 200 children from that school and other schools who were introduced to Svitlo. Svitlo means light in Ukrainian, and we were given that name by one child who is 16 now. He was 15, and he said that he thought that his life was over, but then it has just begun. Because now he's finishing first year of A-levels in Harrow School Online, predicted 3 A stars, and we're going to try and get him into Cambridge to study mathematics. And this is one of the cases. We have lots of different cases, but basically what Svitlo Education is now, from March 2022, it was like a snowball of, just like rolling, and lots of people came on board other than volunteers. Who, this would have not been possible without them. We have lots of companies giving us support and pro bono services, and we're a registered charity now because of the law firm that helped us. We have free licensed Zoom accounts because of Zoom, and the list is huge. You can check it all on our website, which was also given to us as a gift by one of the tech companies. And the way we position ourselves is an extracurricular school in English. So we have an English test for Ukrainian children before they can join the kind of all the classes. Not because we are selective, but because all our volunteers are native speakers, and we need to understand that they will be able to understand the volunteers. The children who don't pass the English test, then they go through 3 or 6 months of intensive English learning only before they join the school. And our school is about life skills. And that really touched me when you mentioned that school has to be more about life skills. So the idea behind Svitlo is that Ukrainian children can still access Ukrainian curriculum. Some had their schools bombed, they're online. Some are very close to war zones, so they also have their education, Ukrainian education online. Some go to school physically every day, but we start at 1 o'clock UK time, which is 3 in Ukraine, and we offer up to 6-7 lessons a day that they can choose from. And it could be personal finances, or a book club, or TED Talk, or now I attended EBRD conference last Friday, and they were talking a lot about anti-corruption, and we're going to start anti-corruption course, and how to tell propaganda from a resource that you can trust. Everything that is needed for any child in any country, but also for Ukrainians particularly, to get them out of that history of being, attached to a Russian Empire and then Soviet Union. The literacy rate in Ukraine is very high, but the actual skills and social skills and just simple saying no thank you instead of no when you're offered, a cup of tea or something, this is what we tried to do. And we have 2,000 children unregistered in Ukraine now. They kind of drop in and out depending on the situation. But yeah, we are now kind of, sorry, I'm summarizing it all up, but the big idea of the charity is to bring up future social and political leaders of Ukraine who will have the European and world work ethics and can be, equal to every other nation that speaks English or doesn't.
That was glorious and really, really inspiring. And anything that we can do to support you, we'd be proud to.
Thank you. So any volunteers, teachers or not teachers, are very welcome. And another part that I just discussed with Jen, and I thought I mentioned it, but obviously it was just to Jen. But we have a group of GCSE students that we support here. So we have some volunteers offering online lessons in small groups to children who moved from Ukraine within last year and had to sit, they moved and ended up in year 11 at the beginning of academic year, and they had to sit GCSE. So imagine not, coming from traumatized experience, not having English as your first language or very little English, parents who don't know what the system is, what to do, and quite often these children are the ones taking parents to the banks and shops and translating for them. So they have that kind of role of being an adult as well, and they have to sit the exam. So we had a small group this year, and we started our course for next year to support year 10s going into year 11.
Fantastic. So my next question follows smoothly on, and I'm going to take it to Jen first. Who are your tutors? Who are your volunteer tutors? What's the background? What's the motivation? Tell us.
Well, they're incredibly diverse. We have age 18 to 82 in terms of the age demographic of our tutors.
No, 8-year-olds.
18-year-olds, not 8-year-olds, sorry. And they come from various different career paths. Some are in university, studying for the degree. Others are in the world of work and have some time to give. And then there's the retired community, which is as diverse as any of the others, is what we've learned in the last few years, but perhaps they're looking to use the skills and maybe have a bit more time to give in a volunteering capacity. So that is quite unique about what we do. Often volunteer organizations target a particular type of volunteer. Actually, what we're looking for is the motivation of why they want to do it. So we have plenty of private tutors who then do volunteering with us as well. And those who are former teachers, but also those who have the skills, but maybe need the structure and the support and the kind of logistics all done for them. So they need to have strong subject knowledge, an A-level in the relevant subject, have a degree or the life experience a degree provides. But we do pretty much everything else. So once they're vetted for that subject knowledge, we can train them in the curricula. They use our resources. We have a team of teachers or former teachers, who look after quality and all the lesson planning and assessments that we do with them. So it means that we have this wonderful community all across the country that is both tutoring in-line and in person, and comes from this range of backgrounds that often isn't represented in the communities our communities of pupils are quite diverse. So we're really trying to ensure that the tutors in their environments, because often the schools and the teachers may not be. So it's really nice. And I love when you've got a school in Merseyside working with a tutor down in Brighton and connecting across the country really raises aspirations as well.
That's lovely. There are so many rich areas to explore there, specifically the idea that children are working with tutors with a broad range of life experiences and the aspiration and the context that they benefit from there. I think that's really, really inspiring. Could you tell us a little bit, Yuliya, about who your tutors are? And then also, as Jen said, how do you build them up to being able to deliver?
Yeah, so we have similar situation with very diverse background of tutors. We're also partnering up with schools. Our youngest volunteer is 14, and he's an Indian. He's teaching children about Indian culture. His mom is also from India, and she teaches maths, but we call it Indian maths because they're different methods, or maths from India, I think it's called. So I think Svitla is a lot about opening up the world and learning just about everything that other than the war. We do talk about the war as well, but we're also trying to give them part of their childhood back. And our volunteers initially were people who were just really angry with the situation in Ukraine and the Russian army attacking, and they just wanted to help. They just wanted to not feel useless or helpless. So that was the initial drive. I think it's still now it is about that, but we have a very child-led curriculum, or we kind of develop our curriculum depending on children's needs. So, for example, we had some partnership. We still have partnership with Pearson Academy online in America, and they gave us lots of free spaces for children to join their school. And I was their mentor in the group. We had like 15 children, and then they were asking me questions that to me, having an 18-year-old going through education here felt so simple. Like, how do I, just find this? So I was like, ask your teacher, email them. And I realized that they don't know how to email teachers. So we had a course about emailing and the little small talk. Whoever got the email from me, I apologize because I'm not very good at it. But a little kind of first few sentences, you don't get to your question. And then at the end, you need to end in a
Most of us add
way.
it afterwards.
Oh, well, yeah, well.
Right?
I wouldn't know what to say. But basically, these things. And we are hiring our first paying position would be as a charity. Everything has been run by volunteers and trustees. So we are going to hire now a head of academics who will be taking a big load of me, monitoring the teaching. And because of our free licenses with Zoom, we have all our lessons recorded, and then the teachers can use those through Zoom accounts as well. So there's, I think, lots of technology and being part of the community that we offer now, which wasn't there last year. And of course, the children, honestly, all children are amazing and sponges, but trying to, comprehending that they are there and what they're going through, and they text. We had some children texting me or write an email to the teacher saying that I'm really sorry, my house has been flooded by the dam now, and I won't be, showing up to lessons this week. Please forgive me, or something like that. So it's But any background.
I'm seeing some interesting similarities and comparisons. You're at the sharp end of trauma.
Yeah.
And you're working with students with needs, and you're working with this agile curriculum where you can deliver whatever seems to be needed or available, with this broad idea of building leaders, which is really exciting, and you're answering the government expectation in mostly maths
And
English. Science?
No science.
So it's fascinating to think how volunteer tutors and the model of volunteer tutoring can be so agile. And it strikes me that probably the key to success is going to be leadership and management. So communicating with schools is, of course, you're probably awesome at that. So let's explore what those communication paths are, because we've all been talking all day about how to keep lines of communication between tutors and schools open. And it seems to me that's one of the things that your successes must be predicated on.
Well, I don't think we've entirely cracked it, but it's certainly something we consider as a partnership, and that's how we set the expectation from the beginning. Our mission statement is about partnering with schools. We're not a service for schools, because we need them to help us inform tutoring so it's most impactful. And frankly, they know the young people better than we do. We're going to be dropping into their lives maybe for a couple of terms, but we're not going to have the rounded picture of those individuals, their school journeys. So we need their input. And on a very practical level, we need them to get those young people in the place at the right time so we can deliver tutoring that can come down to those simple things. But as a former teacher, I feel like I'm allowed to say, it's really hard to communicate with teachers. Increasingly there is more and more administration and less time to do it. So trying to communicate with schools, we're looking for the sweet spot of someone who has the authority to make decisions, but with the time to action. And that's a really tough combination. And it's not the same person in every school. So one thing that we've learned over the last 11 years is be creative with who you find as your key person for your day-to-day. You need a senior leader buy-in, that's a given, but we need someone who has time and authority for action as well. Doesn't mean they're great on email, so you might need to wait till they finally give you their phone so you can call them, or jump on the walkie-talkie if the team go to the school that day if they're out doing duty. So it's about being creative and being a little bit relentless until you do it. But we need their interaction, and in the past where partnerships have not worked, it has come down to us needing more from the school in terms of logistics communication.
I think what I always feel when I talk to you about the way you do things at Action is that it's really sensible. Yeah, that it's really sort of thought through and considered, and you know that it's not always going to go well, but these elements of finding the right person is really intentional, isn't it? And if you, and the whole thing unravels if you don't find that person. I would suggest that you also want buy-in from that person. They need to know what change can happen. So can we draw you now to wins? What does success look like? Give us some wins.
So the particular demographic we support is disadvantaged pupils, but those who are at risk of not passing, and that could be their expected standards at SATs in year 6, or it could be their grade 4 at GCSE. So for us, the simple answer is them getting a passing grade in the subject we're supporting is the win, the success. And that's what we report on, that's what funders, that's where volunteers want to know has been happening. But the win actually that most commonly gets talked about is confidence. And how that little ear, that little voice in your head when you're sitting in an exam, you can do this, you got this, you know, that support, knowing they've had a person like back them the whole way up until their exams, that is really hard to quantify, but that is absolutely the theme that we see coming from teachers, from the pupils themselves, and then hopefully shows in the grades as well, ultimately. So success is more than just the grade. It does matter because we live in a world where that door closes. You know, we are operating in that scenario, but we know there's more than that the tutors are providing.
Yuliya, tell us some wins.
That's amazing. I think you're absolutely right. In terms of it's about touching, individual lives. Well, we're very small, so we don't have like huge, very young, sorry, we don't have huge track record in terms of where our students end up going. But of course, at the moment, it's saving their mental health and showing them a ray of hope on their future, I think is the main thing. No matter whether they just attend a few lessons and they have, this kind of, because you can imagine the teachers in Ukraine, what state they are in now, and how that reflects on their teaching as well. Like, if you have, personal issues or you had an argument with your partner and then you're coming to school, it's different than if you had a happy week. So imagine going through war and then being happy and trying to teach, trying to be happy and trying to teach children. So I think every day we're touching someone's life in a different way. Our volunteers do, and that's our biggest power. But then we also have, other than hope and confidence and everything that you have mentioned, it's all applicable to Svitla students here or in Ukraine. We also have the support that they need for advancing their education. So as I said, we have like a partnership with some online schools. We're going to try and help boys who are 17, 18 in particular now to apply, like smart boys who, would want to apply to universities abroad and continue their education rather than be enrolled in the army. So it's issues like that. But in terms of working with schools, we have two sides. So I'm mainly the person working with schools in Ukraine, trying to tell them about us and work with teachers and see how we can support the teachers as well. But also we are partnering up with schools here, offering our expertise on Ukrainian culture and language, and maybe explaining how English system or British system works to Ukrainian families, parents, particularly of younger children, any translation, but also tutoring for GCSE. And that's
I think there's a strong theme in terms of cultural literacy, isn't there? How you write an email. We have one of our tutors, Sarah Lynn. She says that when she came from Canada, her husband explained to her that you have to accept a cup of tea when people offer it. There are rules.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think understanding the please and thank yous and understanding the norms is a massive piece of being that trusted adult. You're raising the child in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that you mentioned something about cultural literacy in terms of being a teacher and knowing that it's okay to say it's hard to get in touch with teachers. Yeah? And we say that without any judgment. We just say it because their plates are full. We're here to help. So we have to keep our systems as light touch as possible and actually bring our shoulder to the wheel. When I started off in my school, it was not doing well. And the first thing that I did, the bell was broken, the school bell was broken. So I used to go around and tell them the time, 10 minutes before the end of the day, so that they didn't come downstairs late. And sometimes leaders just need to
Hands-on,
see what's needed and bring it. So I have a completely different question for you. I want to know about the story that you tell that motivates people to volunteer as tutors. What motivates them?
Well, I have one particular story that I like to share, and we're fortunate that we have thousands of great stories, but this one has always resonated with me. And we had a school whereby Year 11 cohort were going through the last days of sort of that school and its special measures. They were the last year group to see it at its kind of bad days. And the younger groups were a different demographic culture of people, and the teachers had helped shaped it. And this one individual in Year 11 wasn't set to pass any GCSEs. And when one of the team from Action Tutoring were talking to the teachers about who you're going to put on the programme, they went through the list and said, oh, well, we won't put him. And the team member said, well, why? Oh, well, he's not going to pass anything, and he won't turn up. And we can't have all our pupils like that, because that's a huge amount of need, but 1 in 20, it's worth a shot, right? So we convinced the school to put this individual on, and he did not want to come to tutoring after school, particularly because it clashed with football. And half the time he was in detention anyway, so you had this negotiation of pulling him out of detention for tutoring. Eventually got him there, and he really, really clicked with his tutor. It was a total chance. You can have we've done so many different things about how you match pupils and tutors. I don't know. I think it's just magic sometimes. You can't predict it. It worked. And he didn't always come. He didn't always pay attention. And actually, he didn't end up passing his GCSE maths or any of his other subjects, because he was so far behind that it was too late. But I remember the thing, and this is why it's a success story, and I think it's motivating, is that his teacher of maths came and found my colleague after one session and said, what's happening in here? What's happening with this pupil? And I go, well, why? And like, well, we've just got his first ever maths homework in his entire schooling journey. What have you been doing? And that, for me, is about the power of not just tutoring, but that role modeling, that person that's investing in them. We tell our pupils the tutors are volunteers. We want them to know that's how much they want to be there. They're not being paid to be there. Actually, are there for other reasons. And that often is quite motivating for the pupils as well. And I just think that's a phenomenal story, because that's more than, maybe a better mock grade. It's a shift in mindset that potentially has wide implications. That young person's now saying, actually, if I try, maybe I can succeed. And yes, it didn't happen in time for the GCSEs, but we're hoping it's going to be better life choices for him.
Isn't that good?
So I love that story.
Thank you. I love that story too. I love it because it has a messy ending.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Life's not perfect.
No. So we have 5 minutes. I would like to speak to you. Can I have a show of hands, please, to know whether or not you have done any volunteer tutoring, please? Also online. Okay, so now I would love you to bring some questions to Jen and Yuliya, based on the fact that almost half of this room have volunteer tutoring. So what's worked for you? What hasn't worked for you? What are the questions that you would like to bring? Yes, go ahead. Thank you, Charlotte.
I hope you don't mind, but we
Love
are a
it.
room full of rebels, so I'm not going to answer that question, but I just want to big Yuliya up. Is that all right? I didn't work with Yuliya for very long, but I did a couple of lessons with Svitlo, and they are the most beautiful children. But I just want to say there's a video going around, and if you haven't seen it, it's Richard Human and that wonderful work he did. If you don't follow Richard Human, please do.
Or follow Svitlo.
Well, yeah, of course. follow Svitlo as well. Duh. But there's a video going around of some work he did. He's a geography teacher, and he asks the children what they want to learn.
Yeah.
And they did some work on Argentine tango, wasn't it?
Yeah, dance.
And this beautiful, this gorgeous girl and her father created a video of themselves doing the Argentine tango, and it's the most moving thing I've seen for a very long time. Much more moving than the lessons I did.
We've
with
got
them.
salsa dancing after this.
So honestly, it was just beautiful. And if you, that's all I have to say.
Fantastic. And that's the creativity and the agility and the open-endedness. Please, go ahead, Kathleen, go ahead.
How do you recognize the work of the volunteers that you have? Because of course they're there out of their own will, and they have their own motivations to be there, whether it's experience, whether it's, as you said, extra time, or just wanting to make an impact, a good impact towards the cause. How do you kind of like reward them or acknowledge their effort? Is it just sending an email of thank you? Do you give them a certification of like, oh, you volunteered this how many hours? Or do you kind of like gather them in an event where you say, we appreciate you, this and that? Do you do any of that for them to keep them encouraged, or is it non-existent yet?
Yeah. No, it's a good
lovely.
question. Shall I take that?
Yeah, I'm going to take notes.
Well, first and foremost, it's about our young people. So the tutors come second, and we are unashamedly, that's the most important thing. But tutors, we can't do what we do without the volunteer tutors. So celebrating their success and their efforts is a really big, important piece. I think most, if not all, of our tutors are most rewarded by seeing the young people make progress. So we're really intentional about sharing that and the successes, and any feedback we get from schools or from their pupils. In our pupil survey, they write thank you notes to their tutors. On a kind of organisational scale, those who want a community, we do tutor socials. There's quite a number of action tutoring pub quiz teams across the country. Next month we have our London-based picnic for all the tutors to come together and share, and not everyone wants that community, but we offer it there. We have a series of kind of events, and we nominate our volunteers for the National Volunteering Awards, and one recently won Student of the Year. And last year we won the Queen's Jubilee Volunteering Award for charities. So two of our incredible tutors went to Buckingham Palace for a lovely day out.
That is fabulous.
So we try to do
So
it
every
like that.
6 weeks, 2 tutors go to Buckingham Palace.
Not like that. That was 11 years in the making.
I think that's absolutely fabulous. Julia, would you?
Yeah, we have on a very small scale similar. So we have a community on LinkedIn, WhatsApp group. We have some freebies that we give in terms of signing up to the Zoom or Lesson Up or other free licenses that we got. Of course, children speak for themselves and their success stories. There's a volunteer from Ukraine, a few volunteers from Ukraine who helped me run the school, and they are in constant communication. And we actually, when I meant child-led curriculum, it's actually child-led running of lessons as well. So we have a prefect, we have a house system, we have a prefect, we have student council, and all those children take very active part in running the school. So every teacher, before they start, they would have interview with me or like a session, video session, and then they would have the first session with the children that I attend, and then the prefect of this, after the children have been introduced to the tutor, the prefect will write to them. We have a template of the email that they
with
send.
A friendly hello.
With a friendly hello.
Very good.
And the student council has devised that template themselves, and they would write and say, I'm here to help you, and So I think that warm atmosphere is
How
what we,
lovely.
yeah, what
Absolutely
we try to
lovely.
do. We've tried with the picnic. I kind of ran out of energy, but I'll try to do that in autumn maybe.
Okay, so I have a tool for you. This Sunday is World Tutors Day.
Yes.
And we are able to gift thank you credentials. So I would strongly suggest or request that you write thank you cards to those tutors.
Absolutely,
It's
yeah.
just a quick form. And even if you can get the students or the teachers or the families to write those thank you cards, or even if they're from you, it's a beautiful piece of leadership because it persists and it gives them a sense of confidence to go forward. What we haven't discussed, and we don't have time for because it's a great big thorny subject, is quality assurance in volunteer tutoring and impact evaluation. So if you could book that in for next time, please, dear. Thank you very much. Everybody online, you have a 15-minute break, and then we're going to be coming back and sharing some more ideas with you. You may have noticed that I gave the title for today's session yesterday. It was a trick. I was just testing you. It's a different presentation today. It's not the Love Tutoring story. It's membership that makes a difference. So that's what we'll be talking about in 15 minutes' time. I'm looking forward to seeing you then.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.